going to move to our family poem, and Danielle Johnson is coming. Where's Danielle? Here she comes.
In my dreams, I can hear when they whisper. Silent echoes reach out from the past. Everywhere that I go, they are with me. Memories in my soul they have cast. Many hundreds of years separate us, but through the ages their forces endure. And although I may not see them clearly, generations can't keep them obscure. My ancestors dwell deep inside me, and their spirits can see through my eyes. All of their thoughts are ingrained in my being, and through the eternity our souls are tied. Ancient scars are embedded inside me, evidence of old wounds still not healed, and although not inflicted upon me, all their pain in my heart is revealed. You may not think that you see me when you're looking at me, and that it is my words in which you hear. So as I look around the room today, a history lesson is what I received. In every accomplishment that you and I have, they have allowed us to achieve.
That was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move to certificates of appreciation, and I'm going to ask if Rose would come up for that. We have some special people that we want to honor tonight, and some of them will be surprised.
Good evening, everybody. When I thought about this, when my cousin really thought about this, because we've done so much and I appreciate you. We want to be able to appreciate our elders, because most of the time we don't. They are our life, our being. They taught us everything that we know. We want to be able to just appreciate them. So what we did was, we have a certificate, and what I want to do is take the eldest child from each family to come up. Or if the elder wants to come up, they can do that as well. But if not, I'll take the eldest child to come up to take a certificate for their parent tonight. And the certificate reads as follows, and all of them read basically the same way. Hill Family Reunion, connecting families, honoring our ancestors, Annie Lee Hill. In honor of your 87 years of life experience, we award you this certificate as a token of appreciation for your steadfastness and dedication to our family. On this day, August 4th of 2012, we award this award to Miss Annie Lee Hill. President Willie B. Hill, Vice President Vernon Hill. It's on my list. Frizzell Coleman. The eldest child there. Annie Bell Hill. Betty May Hill.
Where does one begin? Where does one begin when you are tasked with telling the story of the history of our family, the significance of its details, and the power of knowing what the annals of history entail, and the ground from which we spring? I fundamentally believe we do not merely simply arrive on the scene out of the ether, absent of any connection to anything anywhere. I believe that we arise out of all the joy and all the pain, all the tears and triumph, all the laughter and dancing, all the prayers and songs, all the hopes and dreams deferred, all the love and love lost and love found and made new again. We arise out of our stories. Have you ever considered the ground out of which you spring? you thought about all the occasions that have made possible your being and your becoming? Who your parents were, the year you were born, what town was it in, who named you, why do you have that name you have, what does it mean, and maybe what was your first memory, or that time when you were younger, when you read that book or heard that song, or listened to that speech or saw what you saw, or said what you said that changed the trajectory of your life. We don't just arrive out of nowhere. We each have stories out of which we arise. Jasper knew that. Jasper Hill, the patriarch of whom we have the most information to date, was a farmer in the verdant pastures of Hill Place in Beechwood, Alabama. Born in 1873 and married to a woman named Violet, Jasper knew what it meant to be a diligent tiller, keeper, knower, and lover of the ground. It was his connection to the ground that made him prosperous and well known in his town. It was his connection to the ground that inspired his imagination, prompting him to make something sweet and substantive when he had made and sold his own special recipe syrup. He serves as a model for us of what our lives could look like if we set our orientation to the ground of our being. That's ultimately what history is. It is the story of the idea of us. Scientists tell us that the literal ground is the story of the entire history of our world, dated back at least 4.6 billion years ago. We know the history of Earth's formation, the advent of life, how long it took to get us there, and how many times we had to start all over again. We know when humans came into being, and just how long it took to get to us. Each strata, each level of the ground, each speck of sand and sediment, it forms the backstory of billions of years that have the creative genius of God, moved over and through just to see you smile. The articulation of history comes with a responsibility. Jasper, part of that first generation that knew what it was to be born human and remain human and free, Jasper demonstrates for us that we have the capacity to write our own stories however we choose. How did this man own his own farm, full of cows and pigs, and run his own business in the deep South in the early 1900s? How did he manage to do that? He knew that as significant as his backstory was, that all the details of where and how he began did not and should not remain all that there is to tell of his story. This man had the courage and the moral clarity to write his own story himself, and we ought never let the circumstances of our birth or the contours of our life or the content of our now strip us of the power that is writing our own stories. That's really what legacy is. It's not merely an inspiration you leave once your bones have kissed the earth. It is a present tense assignment, a right now mission. You aren't just choosing sides of history. You are the veritable presence. Your veritable presence is speaking history right now. What are you saying with it? What is the substance of the narrative you are writing? I don't want us to get caught up in the success of this man's life. In the first sermon I ever preached, I talked about how God is a reader, and that God wants to read a good book. That in the 20th chapter of the book of Revelations, when God opens the books, God is not looking for a litany of our success. How many titles we gained, how many degrees we have, and from where. The health and wealth of our 401ks, that we were able to buy a house or a car. God isn't looking for the material attainment of our lives, but wants to know, how did you love in spite of it all? How did your life manage to shift the way the world tilts or the cosmos grow? How did you manage to live a life that impacted everyone and everything around you? Not because you were successful, but because you loved. The greatest gift that we can glean from the life of Jasper is an example of what it means to be a lover. This man was a worshiper. As a Bible scholar, he was a lover of ideas. As an avid learner of the world around him, he was a lover of humans. The chef in him that made that sorghum syrup, that was the lover of beauty. And the farmer who tended animals and knew the rhythm of the breathing of the land and the singing of the trees, that part of him loved life. But what's more, and what I love about his story, is the love he shared with Violet. We don't know much about Violet. We know that she lived, We know that she was loved so profoundly that it has to be mentioned in the telling of Jasper's story. We know that she was beautiful and that she died early. We don't know much about this woman, but in my imagination as a woman who loves the book The Color Purple, and knowing that her name was Violet, I understand that purple may be just what love looks like in the light. When I look back over our history, I can imagine that it was the love of this woman that teamed through everything on that farm, in that man, through those children, and colored all the love that we read about in this man's life, and that we all experience even in our own. That's the ground we come from. Lives moved and inspired by the power of love. Violet gives us a portrait of what a life of substance does within the lives it's connected to. It changes them. It changes community. People will come from just mouths to dine off the feast you create like they came to get Jasper's syrup. But hers and Jasper's are not the only lives. There's Sue Moss, my great-great-grandmother, who, though she traded a chicken for a Bible, didn't need that Bible to announce to her what she already knew about God creating it all. There's California, her mother, and a probable former slave who is named after a mythical black queen who ruled her just kingdom of other black women in South America without the assistance of a king. There's the mother who made it over, the unknown woman who was smuggled to the southern U.S. shores after transport across the Atlantic via the East Indian Trading Company. There's the ancestors on some distant Malagasy shore, ancestors who were most likely slaves in Madagascar as well, who traced their heritage to the eastern shores of Africa and the islands of Indonesia. Then there are the ancient ones, who lived peaceably in the rainforests of present-day Cameroon and Chad, raising families, telling stories, making songs, and dancing with their God. We do not come from the ether. We arise out of the ground. When I was a little girl, and even now, I used to always read books, fiction books, and I was always daydreaming and writing my own stories. Whenever life was too much for me, whenever I was hurt or upset or angry about something that I just didn't know how to deal with, I always grabbed a book to read. I used to think that I did it to wrap myself in imagination or hide myself in another world, but what I understand now is that I was finding myself in the story. I hope if you take nothing else from the journey of discovering our family history, be it what's written in the programs, what you heard tonight, or what you'll research on your own, that you take with you a new desire to find yourself in the story. More than that, that you would consider this moment an invitation to pen the first line to your own. I don't know where your story might begin. While I was writing for the Obama campaign, I said that my story begins as a woman who follows in the line of courage, gift, genius, imagination, power, especially as a single mother. There are other times when I say my story begins that second day, that day in second grade when I had to recite King's I Have a Dream speech in front of my entire school. My son may say it began the moment when I wrote that Facebook status about how sometimes the right side of history is the one you are meant to articulate, the one that you are meant to articulate. Or my byline that says that Denise Anita Hill in all her work strives for greater levels of justice, love, and imagination. I don't know what it may be for you, but write your story. Write your story. Live your story. May it be a story that changes the very contours of our world. We owe our ancestors, our children's children's children, and our God as much.